work with small fry. I'm not a designer. Historically, and my background's very scientific, I spent a long time working in pharma, in sales with a medical background. Had a short stint in recruitment, and then I worked for 4 years for Kinnear 4, mostly within medical device design, business development. Also did some structural packaging work as well. And then I went to work with small fry sort of the middle of last year. I know that small fry are not particularly well known in the North East. They're based in Coventry. So just very quickly to give you a quick who we are and what we do. This is small fry, some of the more healthcare oriented products that have been designed and developed. Not just a healthcare orientated company. They do a lot of work across industrial, packaging, medical, healthcare, the whole span of design, as well as innovation workshops. Been around for around about 30 years. Were started by Mr. Small and Mr. Fry, and that's where the name comes from, even though I think it's quite funky. And although there was a lot of resistance to putting in for awards over the past few years, I have put in for awards, been awarded DBA awards, plastics industry, so they are okay at what they do. And although these are not the only people that they've worked with, I just wanted to sort of say there are some big people, but small fry work with everybody across the board, big and small, startups to globals. But I just wanted today to sort of like have a small slot just to discuss medical devices, because medical devices are not they're the sort of product that doesn't just have to be received by the end person that goes to purchase something in the shop. A medical device needs to be approved by so many different people before it actually gets to the end user, because ultimately if that doesn't happen, it won't make it to the end user. A pharma company or a devices company really will never seek to, or would never be able to, get their device to somebody who needs it without the support of a lot of other people. It has to be approved by the physician, because if it doesn't get approved by the physician and they don't have the support of the physician, it'll never get onto the actual hospital formulary or be stocked anyway. It has to be easily explainable by somebody, so they have to be able to pass on that information simply. It has to be accepted by a caregiver, because a caregiver cannot necessarily be the person that needs the device. And it has to be well received by the pharmacist, compliant with NHS procurement, and if it's not liked by the patient, they just simply won't use it. They probably wouldn't go to the shop for it or even get it out of the box. And at the end of the day, we all know it's an expensive business. It would be a complete waste of time and effort. And I think that this is like, anybody got a child with asthma? Yeah, kids, how many people are involved in that care process? There are so many. You've got a young child that needs an asthma drug. Quite often they won't be able to take just a small inhaler themselves. They have to have a spacer. They have to have somebody to be able to put it together, to help them breathe, to help them take the drug. So this process is really, really important. And according to the World Health Organization, less than half the people, even that are educated in first world countries, won't actually take their medication as they're prescribed, even though they should. This information is about 5-6 years old now, but this just looks at the drop-off rates for inhaled products across various different groups. And you can look for, they're all sort of like life-threatening conditions. They're not just what may be seen as sort of like, seasonal rhinitis that might give you a snotty nose or a cough. These are things that if you don't take your drug for, you could easily have a major attack and actually not be here. Most of the drop-off occurs within the first 4 months, and even conditions such as oncology and serious cancers, by 2 years, people have stopped actually taking, most of the people have stopped taking their medication. They can be down to sort of like 20%, which is incredible. And there's various reasons for that. It can be lack of education. It can be cost, because especially in the UK, a lot of people have to pay for their devices. It can be social reasons. People don't always want to be seen sticking something up their nose in public. They don't want to be seen sticking something in their leg or into their tummy. So there's lots of reasons why people don't take their drugs or use the products as they should do. Because we're human, and we don't do what we should, even when we're told. So, anybody speed on the way here? Anybody do 40 and a 30 because they were late? You know, anybody drink more than their 21 or 14 units a week? You probably ordered it last night if you went out. But it's true, we don't. Even though we know what we're supposed to do, and we know the reasons why we're supposed to do it, we don't do it anyway. And industry, not just this industry, has a tendency to ignore the fact that we are human beings and that we do what we want to, not what we're told to do. And importantly, over the past couple of decades, the power has shifted within the NHS, and we all recognise that it used to be dictated at a level way above any medic, and then it came down to sort of a senior consultant level, passed to a doctor, and then now we've come to a point whereby people can actually choose to an extent their medication. They can choose the way that they actually apply that, and therefore it actually hits us in the pocket as a patient, and therefore we must be seen as a consumer. And poor design equals poor compliance. People just don't do what they're supposed to do, even though they know that they could possibly be really ill. And it is wrong, but you know, at the end of the day, you can't make somebody do something that they don't want to do for whatever reason. And can we just ignore that one because it's snuck in? And there's lots of challenges with the people that use the products and the devices. People are not always aware of what they do and how they behave. And I think, I don't know, for me, maybe not a behaviour thing, but you know, whenever I listen to the message on an answer phone or whatever I've left, it's never me. It's always my broad Yorkshire sister who's left the message because it doesn't sound like me. So what I think I sound like, and however intellectual and intelligent I think that I've left my message, it isn't me. So you don't recognise your own behaviours. We don't always behave as we expect to behave. And especially in a circumstance whereby if you don't behave and you don't apply your medication in the right way, you can have really serious circumstances. And we don't always know what we want next. This is just a little bit of small fry stuff, but this is really about where our creative process comes from. And it's that it's easy to spot the wrong answer, but it takes a very creative mind to spot the wrong questions. And it's always easy to be critical of what other people say and other people do, but yet how to actually get them to change their responses and coming up with the questions for them to enforce that change or to make themselves stimulate that change is very, very hard. And I'm not going to rest on this, but these are the little small fry menus that we have. And the reason for showing this slide is more because these 4 processes are the user-centred part of the way that we work. At this point, which is where a lot of people can start from conceptualisation, you've missed the process whereby people are going to provide you with the information of what they want to be able to get them to behave in the manner in which that you want to behave and respond. Most of us have what we want at any time that we need it. If we have type 1 diabetes and we know that we have to test our blood every single day, it's really, really simple. You can have a lancet, you can have something to block the blood on, and you can have a machine to stick it in. It's existed for years. But really, that's not what it's about, because we don't want to do that. It hurts, it's inconvenient, it's cumbersome, it doesn't look cool, it doesn't look good, and it doesn't necessarily make you feel good either. And at the end of the day, now we are much more educated as to disease states, the problems they can cause, and also the equipment that we have to help us make disease states treatable in a nicer fashion and an easier and less obvious fashion in public, because quite often we need to do things in public. Customers are more differentiated, we know what we want more, and we're less tolerant. And the people that I talk to that go to their GP, they talk about what's wrong with them and come away so disgruntled because they know that they can have a treatment that they haven't been offered because they've heard about it, they've read about it, the internet tells them about it. Customers' expectations are high and there's very little loyalty. They want what's best, what suits them most, and what makes them feel good. And at the end of the day, it's trying to see things through the customer's eyes to give them what they want. And this is true. We don't buy things for what they are as such. If you want to get from A to B, you can get a jalopy to get you there. It doesn't matter. But that's not necessarily how you want to get from A to B. You want to go in comfort. You want to go in style. It's the difference between buying a banger and a Bentley. You don't do it because it can get you there. You do it because it gets you there and you feel great when you've got there. You know, get something that has the hood comes down, get the wind through your hair. And this is like watches. Any one of these watches tells the time, but what one of these timepieces will have been bought because it tells the time. It's because it makes you feel nice, makes you feel attractive. It's a status symbol. It's because it makes you feel like you've got something. And that's when it comes down to understanding customers on an emotional level. And there's two ways of being able to look at development. And this is inside-out thinking, which is basically when we start, as you'll know, with the resources that we've got. From the resources, you can develop products because you've already got the ability to develop them and make them, manufacture them. You then sell your product and you make your money through sales and volume. I know a not too small pharmaceutical company that, well, they made insulins. They designed and developed insulin pens, and because they had the capacity to do that, then they decided to design and develop a pen for a thromboprophylactic drug, which was given to people when they came out of hospital to stop them from getting deep vein thrombosis, so a potentially fatal condition. This company did this because they had the ability to design and develop and manufacture a pen that would give something that had stopped somebody getting a blood clot. They did that because they could. They did it twice, and on neither time did the actual product make it to market, because what they'd done is assume that people that had got the potential of having a thrombosis would behave the same as people that had to use their pens on a daily basis to save their lives. And neither of those pens made it to market because people wouldn't use them, because they decided that they were going to make it because of what they'd got, rather than asking the patient what they potentially would need to make them use it. And it's none of them, obviously. But there are companies that have done that and for whatever reason have not been long-term successful. And then there's the opposite. There's outside-in thinking, which is the opposite. When you look at your target audience, your starting point, you find out what they need, you then market it with their needs in mind, and you make your profits through customer satisfaction. New way of thinking, lots of companies that have that are premium companies that have been very successful because they've started with their target audience in mind. Ben & Jerry's, these two guys, they started selling their smoothies at a festival, had two bins. One said, toss your empty carton in the bin if you think we should go back to work on Monday, and toss your carton into the bin if you think that we should go and sell smoothies. They threw them into the sell smoothies basket and off they went. They'd got happy customers. There was another company that I know that wanted to sell their plasters to females of 18 to 35, and nobody would buy them, and they needed to know why, and they did exactly this. They'd got their audience, they needed to know what they wanted to make them use their plasters, and they found out that ladies wouldn't use plasters if they were going to be stuck to their feet, hanging off a pair of 200 quid shoes. They couldn't carry them in their handbags, they looked horrible, they fell out of the cartons, the cardboard fell to pieces. They designed and developed a new type of plaster targeted at that audience. And they had a phenomenal success with that because they'd started with the end user in mind and their wants. And so it comes back to both heart and mind. Yes, it's what's practical. It's got to work. It's got to be acceptable because ultimately we want the market share and the profits. But your heart does often rule your mind. And it's balancing reason, it's balancing those needs with what we know is rational, what we know we need, with what we actually want. And those buying motives, because they aren't rational and they are from what makes us feel good. C, this is really about understanding where the Sunderland fan is. But really, meaningful difference, it doesn't mean the same, only different. Only difference. And it's very easy to be different, but difficult to be better. And that's a quote from Apple. What is really difficult is filling in this gap here, because it's easy to make something usable, reliable, and functional. It's easy to make a bog standard inhaler that looks square, you put in your mouth, you suck, and it works. It's really hard to make it so that it's dead easy to use when you're out and about. It's easy to refill. It's really hard to make it so that it feels comfortable in your pocket, so that if you're a little kid at school, all your friends want one. And it's hard to make it really meaningful, and that is what's really important. Because ultimately it's all about me, and then my world, and then the world. And in times of hardship and in times when you know that the chips are down, then it's you that becomes important. So the questions are, do you know who buys and uses your products? Do you know how to find out what they really, really want and what they need? And do you spend time talking to your customers, listening to them, observing how they behave, and trying out new ideas? What people say and do are completely different, and we all know that. We're generally ruled by our emotions rather than what we're told to do and necessarily what we know is right. And we need to determine our needs and wants, because at the end of the day, it's what's in it for me. Because we're all human. And that's me, thank you.